So living in your car is a primitive lifestyle. A primitive lifestyle meaning it doesn't have the same amenities as living in a house or an apartment. You don't have running water, you don't have abundant of electrical outlets, you don't have a washer or dryer, you don't have a kitchen. You have a primitive life. You have a roof over your head, a seat, and a back seat that you can lay down in. Now, the good news is, in today's modern era, cars are very technologically advanced. So when you start your car, you have a generator with electricity, with heating, with cooling. But at night, when you sleep, you don't want to idle your car for long periods of time as a practice because of whether it's fumes coming from the exhaust outside, or a variety of just different reasons. It's not practical. You'll basically destroy your car after a long period of time. So at night is the main time that you will face the downside of a primitive life, because at night not having temperature control is a big negative, mainly only during the dead of the winter if you live in a state that gets very cold, and in the height of the summer if you live in a state that gets very hot. Because during those times of the year where there's extreme hot or cold and you don't have a temperature controlled environment, that negatively affects you. There's no way around it, and that's the primitive life. Now, yes, there's cars like the Toyota Prius that have a hybrid battery that can run the air conditioning for a period of time, but depending on the outside temperature, they will start their car every 20 minutes or so to recharge the battery. And again, is that practical to do that every night for long periods of time without putting wear and tear on your car or making too much noise for your outside environment? That's for each person to determine. I definitely like the Toyota Prius as an option for its fuel efficiency and for that factor of being able to have a level of cooling at night sometimes. But the primitive life means that you will use public resources more. You will use the gym to shower. You will use, Starbucks for charging your electronics, for a living room. You will use and you will be out in the public more than if you had a house or an apartment. So your mind and your body shutting down to the extent it would shut down after a long day of work and you go back to a house is a little bit different, okay? Because you don't have like this sanctuary. Your car is your sanctuary, but it doesn't cut off all the noise to the outside. It's a primitive roof over your head. So even now, as I make this video, I'm by a street, I can hear noise. You're very much aware of your outside surrounding because you're pretty much outside. You're not in a house. You're not even in an apartment where, you have a little bit more seclusion, a little bit more privacy, a little bit more peace and quiet, and definitely a lot more resources. So every time you're in the public and you see an electrical outlet, you're going to be aware of it now, because if you need to plug or charge your phone, your laptop, or other devices, you need to seize that moment and utilize that public resource. If you're somewhere and there's running water, you're going to utilize that public resource, public restrooms, etc. So the awareness of public resources to supplement the lack of amenities you have living in your car is very much part of a habit that you'll have to adapt to, okay, to substitute for living a primitive life in a car that doesn't have any or not much amenities. The good news is I've been doing it for 2.5 years, and after several months, you will get in a flow and a routine, and you'll know how to move in between different locations to substitute for the fact that you don't have many resources. And you can legally do it. You can legally own a gym membership. It's legal to go in Starbucks, especially buying stuff. And, it's legal to live in your car in general speaking terms. There's some, I think, counties and in some states that have certain rules around it. But certainly, look, if you're going to be at campgrounds, so you have to get away from the mindset of like you're doing something wrong. You're not doing something wrong. You're simply doing a primitive life, So it's odd because not too many people want to sign up to live a primitive life. But the good news is, again, people did it hundreds of years ago. Only within the last century or so, in the last 100 years or so, did running water, did electricity, did all these things exist in most people's dwelling. Most people lived a primitive life for the majority of the human race history. Um, but there was also shorter life expectancy because, again, being out in the public more, not having all the amenities and the resources, sometimes that could lead to disease, or, you're not cleaning yourself enough, or, you're outside where there's a lot of germs. Nothing to scare you, but to just be aware, that extra self-care is needed when you're living a primitive life, because you really have to substitute for the fact that you don't have this environment that's controlled, that's good. And for a lot of people out there in different times of my life, look, if you weren't in the best of house or in the best of location, then you already understand what it is to adapt and to survive. But the primitive life also gives you a lot of flexibility, okay? Living in your car or van, the ability to move anywhere, to obtain any job, whether it's, again, for your professional reason or personal reason, you get tired of the environment and you have the money and the resources and the wherewithal to move, you move. So overall, I think the main factors of living in the primitive life is your age, is your mindset. Don't underestimate the mindset. Your age, your mindset, your health, and your ability to make an income are your key factors to thriving in a primitive life. Is there a guarantee you'll love it? No. I would say, yeah, I do love it at this season of my life more than anything else as far as living in a house or apartment. I love living on the road. I love living a primitive life. If you get an RV, that's not necessarily a primitive life because you have the full amenities in an RV than you would a car or a van. So a car or van is the most primitive way you can live on the road. But, you always have to have some exit strategy if you start in a car or van. Could you exit into an RV? Could you exit back into a rental? Airbnb, which is a app program that you can basically rent apartments for short-term or long-term. If you really got in a pinch, you can do that. Certainly you could stay at a hotel, but that gets expensive. But, just make some mental notes on what your exit strategy would be if after a period of time you don't like the primitive life. You're going to have ups and downs, so try to ride it out, because once you do make the leap, and I hope you take your time to plan, prepare, and then take action. There's no substitute for action. That, look, you should make the most of it if you're healthy and young enough to do it, because you only get so many opportunities to do it. But those are just some thoughts on someone who's lived in their car for about 3 years, lived a primitive life. I owned a house for 15 years, so I understand what it is to have a lot of amenities. For me, as a single person, at this season of my life, again, I really love it and I embrace it. And I'm making the most of it, and I'm sharing with you in this video some thoughts on it. I appreciate it if you click that thumbs up button, share the video, subscribe if you're not, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.